This talk is called Infinite Shades of Grey, The Promise and Peril of Self-Publishing in the UK. It was presented at Future Book on November 21st, 2013. Thank you to Philip Jones and the team at The Bookseller who invited me to come and give this talk, and to everyone at Kobo who had a hand in putting it together. I'm Michael Tamblyn, Chief Content Officer at Kobo. This is a long story, and I have a short time to tell it in, so think of this as a haiku about self-publishing, its risks, and rewards. In some way, the idea of self-publishing is like a dream, the ability to write your book, easily distribute it through retailers who are willing to make enormous investments in search and recommendation to help people find it, and reach an audience of millions of people who not only love to read, but have declared that they are willing to pay to do so. It's magic. It's like some alternate reality version of the internet where writers actually get paid for writing. But it's real, with real authors selling hundreds of thousands of copies. It's a major business for Kobo, with Kobo Writing Life authors representing 10 to 11% of unit sales globally, and all self-published titles, including from various self-publishing aggregators, representing 15% or more. On October 12th, Kobo had a significant catalog of self-published titles in the UK, tens of thousands of authors and hundreds of thousands of titles, a thriving part of our UK business. On October 14th, we had 0 self-published titles available in the UK from 0 authors, and our 300-year-old retail partner had suspended their web presence. 9 days later, it was back again, almost all of it. What happened in between is part business case, part computer science problem, an exploration of the challenges of gatekeeping versus technological empowerment, curation versus censorship. But really it's about what it means to be a retailer when a retailer is also a publisher and a distributor, and all books are digital. Our self-publishing catalog is made up of hundreds of thousands of titles. It's mostly fiction. Of that fiction, much is romance. Of that romance, some we have come to call active romance. Kobo, like all retailers with a self-publishing arm, has a terms of use agreement for content that restricts the illegal and some topics that, if not illegal, we don't especially want in the store. Some authors and some publishers using the self-publishing service and other self-publishing services decided to ignore that. When they do that, this is what happens. The result was that starting sometime on October 12th, we started to play something that seemed at times like the world's least pleasant literary video game. It's called Erotica Gate, and it starts like this. You have several million titles. An unknown number of them contains sexual content, suggestive words, or adult themes. Of those, a much, much smaller number have sexual content that is against your terms of use. For both categories 2 and 3, some are well labeled and categorized, some are not. Some are covered with highly descriptive keywords, some are not. Some are mistakenly put into categories they shouldn't be in by inexperienced authors not familiar with subject codes. Some are intentionally put there to boost search results and the possibility of discovery. All of the books that breach your terms have come through the self-publishing service. Some are from authors, some are from publishers using self-published authoring tools. And if you started digging, you could probably find out that some were coming from traditional publishers as well. And this is how you play. If you remove all titles, you don't have a business. If you remove any titles, some people will consider you a censor. If you remove all titles with sexual content, you are a censor. If you don't remove the smaller number of titles that contravene your terms of use, bad PR and damage to your brand continues. Every book you remove creates an angry author. Every author you remove has a Twitter account. Every journalist wants to find the worst title possible. Authors of contravening content have every economic incentive to try and get their titles back up any way they can, resubmitting blocked books with new titles, submitting books with innocuous titles, and then changing them afterwards. And yet, fundamentally, you believe that erotica should be available. And there's a time limit. Until you have found everything that shouldn't be there, your partner's site stays down because they are a deeply beloved, respectable, publicly traded 300-year-old high street retailer. And so in this game, you don't really win. You only don't lose to the extent that you learn from this experience you're going through. And so you begin. And trying to answer all of those questions and deal with all of those constraints is how you end up with self-published titles removed from our catalog for 9 days. Because you quickly realize that to change from allowing everything to allowing anything other than everything is a leap of both incredible difficulty and ethical hazard. And this is a digital business, right? It should be easier with computers. But to try to automate a search like this is very difficult. It casts a net too wide. It screens out books that don't have anything to do with erotica, or adult books that we don't have a problem with. And regardless of how you do it, this becomes about making choices and enacting them. So it has to be some kind of curation. But can you ever really curate a 4 million title database? Is it folly to think that you could? But at some point, if the answer is anything other than everything, then someone has to decide. The decision may be based on the book jacket or on a title. It may be on the structure of an algorithm and what it catches. It may be based on the content itself or all of the above, and it touches every single book. You instantly find that you are working with nearly infinite shades of gray, 100,000 nuanced decisions. And it's great because some authors want to walk as close to the line as possible. They take pride in it, or find commercial reward or artistic merit in doing so. And every decision has two kinds of risk. Let the wrong book pass, and you have the risk of alienating customers, or bad press, or damaging a partner, or breaking the law. But there's also the other risk, the greater danger, the possibility, however vanishingly small, that the book that you're filtering out is the next Tropic of Cancer, or Justine, or Lolita. And over all of it, the fear that, while using words like brand risk and community standards, you could take on the smooth and reasonable tone of the censor. Although I think it's fair to say that if Nabokov had decided to call it Barely Legal Stepdaughter Fantasies Volume 4 instead of Lolita, he might have had a harder time of it. Now, publishers, of course, have never had any problem saying no to books. Bricks and mortar retailers, too. It's tradition. It's the time-honored role of the gatekeeper. There are never enough shelves. Only so many books that we can publish. Lots of perfectly good reasons to say no. But self-publishing is different. The natural promise of self-publishing is, yes, everything. Whatever you can imagine. Whatever your story is, whatever you think could be shared, however good or bad or tinfoil hat crazy or non-traditional or deviant or artistically groundbreaking. That's part of the dream. And every book removed feels like a small step away from that, even if for the best of reasons, even for the title that makes you lose your faith in humanity or throw up in your mouth. At one point, we had people in a half a dozen countries working around the clock trying to get books back in as fast as possible, reviewing self-published titles so that we could re-include them in the catalog. creating 100 bizarre conversations? Is it bestiality if it's sex with a shapeshifter? What if both participants are supernatural? What is the age of consent in the 190 territories in which we sell? Does it matter if the character is in a coma and everything that takes place is happening in a dream? Is this book in or out? Over and over. And so over the course of a few days, most books were restored to the catalog. Almost everything. But not absolutely everything. Some were clearly against our guidelines. Some were tangled up in collections of other books requiring one at a time manual review, some of which had nothing that was against our terms of use at all. No books were ever removed from users' libraries, but a relatively small number of titles were removed from sale. Most authors were understanding. Some were angry. Some were loud. And they should be. In the physical world, to make a book go away is a big deal. You have to burn it, or seize it at the border, or confiscate it from a shop in a public, visual, galvanizing spectacle. But to delist, to deactivate, to change a 1 to a 0, is silent and banal. We should be loud when it happens, and we should ask why. Authors should give us and every other ebook retailer a hard time when it happens. Because it is so much easier now to make something disappear. We are immensely relieved that self-published books are back in our UK catalog. There's still a lot of work going on, lots of work still to be done, safe searching, inbound filtering, review, conversations with vendors, outreach to authors. And we've grown up a little bit. When the answer is anything other than we carry everything, you have to take a hard look at the kind of bookseller you want to be, what it means to have that role. And we decided that the right place for us is probably right at the point where it no longer feels comfortable, somewhere with a clear view to the edge of the line. And we'll shift and evolve that line. Authors will push us and will challenge boundaries and will go as far as they can go, and they should. And we will continue to grow into our role of curator. Every book retailer now has to wrestle with this. I'm here because we're willing to do some of it out loud, to acknowledge that choices are always being made and be thoughtful about what they mean. And we will wrestle with the danger and significance of saying no, and push always for and appreciate the power and the promise of saying yes. Thank you.